This week on Bros, Bibles, and Beer.
Reveal how the fudge is packed and the sausage is rolled.
It was like lightning strike, thunder, and cats and dogs rain.
Religious or non-religious, you will have an object of worship.
I love how atheists love to know so much about God and Jesus, about the people that they don't believe, and they're just so hell-bent on proving other people wrong.
I wouldn't personally use that language of worship, but if this is the game we're playing, sure.
This is his definition. That's why we're struggling with this.
I'm not struggling with it because I know...
Then you worship Tanya.
I know what he's moving towards.
Accept it.
You just moved the goalpost.
You moved the goalpost.
If you want a definition, moving the goalpost, that was it.
You're a goalpost.
It's also a good
that
question.
That was not moving the goalpost.
Yes,
this is where I and you two differ
Let
completely.
Andy mansplain to you real quick.
I don't need him to mansplain. No.
I really need you guys to check this out.
No, because you can see for yourself. Grab your wife's mirror for whatever girls use extra mirrors for, and look yourself. We don't need to be...
Yeah, but I'm a biased observer.
Okay, no.
I don't want to see a hemorrhoid.
No good friend. Not Andy, not myself, not any good friend. Now, if somebody says they'll look, okay, I'd be careful while they're looking.
Hey, as your good friend, we're recording, by the way.
Yeah. Andy, believe me, both of us know that, but I'm telling you, Zach, no good friend is going to look at your hemorrhoids.
I don't have one, but now I don't even know what a good friend is.
You don't have a good friend, or you don't have a hemorrhoids? Or
yes.
Good times. Really, that's wrong.
Well, tell people where we are, what we're doing.
We're podcasting. We are three boys. Well, this isn't the boys cast.
Yeah, it's not as easy as it sounds.
This is the bros cast.
We're boys that shave.
Welcome to Bros, Bibles, and Beer, where we do things like talk about faith, life, and culture. Serious conversations on faith and culture without taking ourselves too seriously.
It's been a long time since we've done serious conversations.
Andy on the ones and zeros. Jeff to my right, which is appropriate. And I'm on your left.
Because I am on the right.
Very appropriate.
And
I'm off to a great start.
You're in the gray area on the left.
I make it look easy.
All right. Well, thanks for sorting things out, Andy. We'll see how this one goes to reveal how the fudge is packed and the sausage is rolled. We did a full episode talking about things we're going to talk about now, but it's in the garbage heap because of glitches.
Technical difficulties.
Glitches are bitches, and bitches get stitches.
Glitches be crazy.
That's what everyone says. What's going on, guys? Very briefly.
Got a car accident tonight. Well, I didn't actually hit anybody, but it started pouring cats and dogs on the 5 freeway right after the El Toro Y.
Mass hysteria.
I spun. The guy next to me spun after a Tesla 3 went flying, took a left turn from the slow lane or somewhere over there across. And as we're spinning, hydroplaning, I'm assuming, that truck came and just plowed over the Tesla 3. And somehow nobody from behind us got hit. But that Tesla 3, yeah, it's not a Tesla anymore. It's more of a compact Prius now.
It's a Tesla 2 now.
Good news is Elon's got more free time on his hands to fix it now since he left Doge.
But I left there, and I'm like, I'm getting off after my statement was taken by the CHP, who was like 4 cars behind me. According to him, he's like, never saw anything like that. And for a moment, I'm like, car accidents happening all the time. But he was like, I've never seen the rain come down that hard and just be blinding. It was like lightning strike, thunder, and cats and dogs rain, where you couldn't even see a car in front of you. There was so much water on the freeway. It was just like we were in a pool instantly.
And normally people that are from Southern California talking about rain, it's like, oh my God, there's a heavy mist. Everyone freak out. But this was actual rain.
Yes.
There was actual thunder and lightning, or as my 4-year-old, when she was 4, used to call it flashming. Every time I see lightning, I think of that sweet little voice saying, flashming. And it just like delights. It delights. But I have a question for Jeff.
Yes.
How many beers in were you when you gave your statement to the CHP guy?
That's a really good... I definitely had beer on my breath. But I
You
was
shouldn't do
one.
this, kids. Don't do what Jeff does.
That was no.
There are no officers in my trunk, beer.
I now realize. I'm now realizing right now. My wife had asked me, "Did you get a beer at Brewery X?" And I'm like, and for I don't know why I told her no because I picked up beer from there. But I'm like, actually, yes, I did have a slap and tickle there, and then got on the road. And then when I get to about the El Toro Y, it was Crazy Cats and Dogs.
So what kind of beer did you have there?
At
Slap and tickle.
You said you had
Well, I
a
had the
slap and tickle, but what about the beer?
Heyo.
Thank you.
Okay. Who's been drinking? No, but I actually didn't even think about that. I think I was in shock of what had happened. So when the CHP was asking me, so you were the blue Prius, almost like he saw it all happen. He's like, and I've never seen this happen. He's like, nobody's at fault here. Like the rain came down so hard, so fast that
They forced you to have those beers.
it's like nobody would be able to avoid that. That Tesla just went left turn. It's like boom. I'm assuming he hydroplaned, but ultimately, when we were done with that statement, I'm like, I'm getting off the freeway. I went back to GameCraft, which was like a block back, and
Another brewery.
was at my pulse was I was probably racing at about 130. I'm like,
Can't believe that officer didn't give me a DUI.
I should celebrate by getting another beer
Oh man,
before I drive to podcast.
I'm so lucky right now.
I'm like, oh, I want some tater tots and actually, give me can I get a taster of that? Okay, thank you. Oh, you know what? Give me a taster of that.
Do you have a pint-sized taster? Take another one of those.
You know, I think my blood pressure is down. I'll have a pint of that. Thank you.
The listener should know that's Jeff's hack when he goes to a brewery is like, oh, I've never tried that. Can I try that one? And before you know it, he's had half a beer before he has to pay for one.
I remember asking.
Am I wrong?
I like to taste them all.
Okay.
I'll do a Jim Gaffigan there. I like to taste them all. I don't know. What did he do?
Okay.
Is he going to keep talking like that?
Let's go to our wonderful producer, Andy Quick Draw McCraw.
Yes. What?
What do we got going on tonight?
Okay.
What do you have for us?
We tried to talk about it last time. We tried to talk about, well, we did, but then it got washed away, just like when you flip off the camera at Disneyland Splash Mountain. Your memories got washed away. So the glitch happened. But we did talk about the famous debate between Jordan Peterson and 20 atheists. And one of the famous things is that supposedly the title of this YouTube video got changed like after the fact. They posted it, which was like originally a Christian versus 20 atheists. And then later...
And all of those said atheists knew what the title was going to be going into said debate.
Yeah, supposedly that's how it was pitched to them. And I'm going to assume that Jordan Peterson was like, no,
Me?
I don't think this is... don't label me a Christian. Instead, just put Jordan Peterson versus a bunch of atheists, 20 atheists. So, anyway, let me pull this up here for us. And let's see if technology is on our side today.
Now, do you guys want to say anything? Break it down. This is a Jubilee.
No, don't want to break it down.
What
no.
is it?
People know.
Do they? I didn't know. I still don't know.
You know Jubilee. You know Jordan Peterson. You know 20-something atheists. None of them believe in
Yeah,
God.
so the format is they can tag in and they get to respond to a prompt that Jordan Peterson has given. Now, the reason this next clip has exploded on the internet. This kid is now internet famous. So I will...
he got his 15 seconds of fame.
He sure did.
Hey, Dr. Peterson.
How you doing?
Danny, nice to meet you.
What's your name?
Danny.
Danny.
You're saying atheists worship things or people or places, whatever. Can you be very clear about your definition of worship again?
Attend to, prioritize, and sacrifice for.
Okay, that's it. That's your understanding of worship.
Well, I could flesh it out, but that'll do for the time we have.
Okay. Do Catholics attend to Mary?
Well, yes.
Okay. So do they fit that description of worship?
Yes.
So you would say Catholics and other people that revere Mary, like the Eastern Orthodox tradition, worship Mary.
Well, they might not put her in the highest
But you would
place.
put it that way.
No.
You just said it. Now you're taking it back
There's
now?
still a hierarchy.
Okay, there's a hierarchy, but within the
There's something at the top.
All right, you can
Pa-
worship
pause it.
Mary
Mary is
below.
quite a ways up the hierarchy.
So right off the bat, obviously they're on a clock, but it's clear this kid is like already there's like a Kathy Newman versus Jordan Peterson, which is a throwback, one of his original owns of somebody. Like, are you saying? And he sort of jumped the shark already. Are you so like they hold her in the highest? And he never said that, but
true. But
no, he didn't. That's not what he said. They worship her, is what he said.
Yeah. Okay.
Didn't he?
Well,
Or did he? Did
no
he say
worship? But he. I don't know. You don't have to go back.
Ultimately, I appreciate the fact that this kid comes in and he immediately goes to a place where he's going to have some contention, and he knows that he's going to be able to kind of draw Peterson out. In that, it's like no, yes, no, what, and so I kind of appreciate the angle that he's taken because it's not gray.
All right,
he's like all in.
Let's let him
do it.
The top.
Let's go over your definition of worship again. What's your definition of worship?
Attend to.
Attend to.
Prioritize.
Do
And
Catholics
sacrifice for.
What do Catholics attend to? Do they prioritize Mary over all other human beings?
No, I didn't say overall, did I? I didn't add that to my definition.
You understand.
I said there was a hierarchy as well.
You attend to
So you can attend to something trivially, or you can attend to it deeply.
Okay, now you're adding stuff to the definition. But your original
I
definition.
added the hierarchy part at the beginning.
Are you
just
familiar?
didn't understand it.
Are you familiar with the Immaculate Conception?
Why is that relevant?
Because you go to a Catholic church, don't you? Or you've attended recently. You're interested in Catholicism, aren't you?
Sure.
All right. Are you familiar with their doctrines?
Somewhat.
Okay, you're
Their
familiar.
doctrines are very
How do they
deep.
regard Mary?
Why are you asking me that?
Because you're a Christian.
You say that. I haven't claimed that.
Oh, what is this? Is this Christians versus atheists?
I don't know.
You don't know where you are right now.
Don't be a smartass.
That kid in the background. That kid in the background, by the way.
Yeah.
When they cut to him and his shit-eating grin, half the time it's just, it is a little unbearable. But
Yeah.
I really, ultimately, he's going after him for something that he really hasn't stated. In that Jordan Peterson, I like how he plays the "I've never met you before. You don't know. We've never had a conversation, and you say I'm a Christian. Okay, hi, I'm Jordan Peterson, and you say I'm a Christian. Let's have a conversation." It's as if it didn't ever exist. And so every conversation for me with Jordan Peterson is, you don't know me, get to know me, and then we'll go through my beliefs. But right now, you stating that I'm a Christian,
okay,
that's unknown.
Okay. You got something to add?
Yeah, real quick, just for context, the Catholic thing is important because Peterson's wife officially did become a Catholic, and I believe Michaela as well, his daughter.
Okay.
And Peterson,
But that's my
obviously.
wife and my child. That's not me.
But also Peterson, he gets accused of grifting from critical people that don't like him as much, but because he's making a killing of a living from Christians, because he's got these Bible series that some of which are very interesting and some wild
When you say a
interpretations, but
killing, what do
still,
you mean by that?
He's making
Money. He's
a
making dollar
very good
bills.
living.
And off the atheists.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's the Howard Stern model of just people will love you or hate you,
By the way,
but they're all listening.
I love how atheists love to know so much about God and Jesus about the people that they don't believe, and they're just so hell bent on proving other people wrong in some way. That's just kind of entertaining to me.
Well,
And I mean
either
it,
you're a
'cause I
Christian
won't
or you're
talk
not.
to you if you're a smartass.
Either you're a Christian or you're not. Which one is it?
I could be either of them, but I don't have to tell you.
You don't have to tell me. I was under the impression
private.
I was invited to talk to a Christian. Am I not talking to a Christian?
No, you were invited to.
I think everyone should look at the title of the YouTube channel. You're probably in the wrong YouTube video,
You're really quite something. You are.
aren't I? But you're really quite nothing, right? You're not a Christian.
Okay, I'm done with him.
Okay.
Is that a Heineken? What is that?
Get some better beer,
Is
Jordan.
that Dos Equis or a Heineken? What is that?
Okay. So this is
Like a good Canadian,
There's-
he's drinking Perrier.
there's
it looks
some there's some polarizing responses to that. Some people see him as snotty. That kid is snotty, and being a jerk. Others have
What was the feedback on Peterson here?
Hold on. So
Okay.
some of them are thinking that, and others are thinking, no, he cornered Jordan Peterson and said, wait a minute, this was pitched to all of us as we're coming here, 20 atheists versus 1 Christian. You are supposed to be the Christian. So are you not? And then the backlash that I've also heard against Peterson has been, hey, dude, if you are a Christian, why are you dancing around? You seem to be ashamed to respond to that.
Yeah, what I like, this kid was onto something, and then he just like let go of the pen and dropped a hand grenade there, and that was stupid on the kid's part because he was emotionally riled up. If he would have stayed calm and not been a smartass,
I know.
Peterson gets flack for good reason for his in out. You can't quite sure. He talks like a Christian sometimes. He's fascinated. He loves the Bible.
Right. Right.
But he will not. This isn't the only place. He will not say whether he's a Christian or not. But he does enjoy the isn't he curiosity factor that he builds through stuff like this. But if that kid hadn't just been a dumbass, maybe they could have gotten to have a little bit of dialogue of like, why don't you say you're a Christian?
know.
Why are you so afraid either way?
It feels like he ruined it. He could have kept it going, but his presentation, he was being snotty and trying to play gotcha.
Totally.
Yeah, and it was the moment that he said, maybe you're on the wrong
YouTube channel.
Yes. And that's what set Peterson off. Because Peterson,
That was a good line, though.
It is, but you're dealing with a scholar. You're not dealing with somebody. Do not razz.
Well, he's not a scholar.
Okay. When we think of Jordan Peterson, we think of somebody who's an academic who is very thoughtful.
Yeah, what do you mean he's not a scholar?
Is not,
What do you mean?
He's not going to come and want to rip on somebody. He's going to want to have an intellectual conversation. And so that's what I mean by he's a scholar. So,
When you're talking about the Bible, though, he's definitely not a Bible scholar.
But he was a professor, or is.
He's a psychologist.
And so his conversations are going to be very intellectual. They're going to be thoughtful. He's going to ask questions that are going to make you dig a little bit. And when just going back about 5 years ago, just hearing him have conversations with people who are challenging him at his own university,
that's kind of what he got famous for.
It is.
Right.
And when I first saw that, I'm like, wow, I really like that he's calm. His mannerisms are, you don't know that. You don't know that about me. And he's still in the same place where don't make assumptions about me, even though they might be obvious. You're going to get to know me. I want to ask questions. You ask questions. I ask questions, and we're going to have a conversation.
But to be and he does, I think, and some of the other people who come up and talk to him, and they're very like confrontational, and you can tell they're approaching it.
Which is the point of Jubilee.
It is. It's a little bit weird, right? Because he kind of fights back and goes, "Look, if you want to have a conversation, let's have a conversation. People are coming in to just win arguments. That's not what I'm interested in doing." And at the same time, the title of it is blank versus blank. Like that's the form of the pattern that
It's
Jubilee uses.
Set in opposition.
It is set in opposition.
Yes, absolutely.
So at some point you're like, yes, Jordan, maybe the kid is right. Like maybe you're on the wrong YouTube channel.
Yeah.
It's almost like fight me. Why aren't you setting this is where I stand?
Yeah.
This is where I stand, and you know that. So why are you not taking that position?
Right. So the kid feels like he was duped a little bit. He's like, wait, we all signed up for this thing of 1 Christian versus 20 atheists, and now you're wishy-washy.
And actually, Jordan couldn't even finish the sentence when he was like, well, you got invited to...
I know, and that's where you see all the like clips like, Jordan Peterson gets owned.
And there were moments like, I don't know if we can pull it off. Like, didn't the kid that had the shit-eating grin that they kept cutting to?
Yeah.
We played one of his clips last time, I think.
Yep.
Which was was a pretty fun engagement as well. Not that you need to hunt for it, but he did. Andy, you watched this whole thing.
Yeah.
I haven't watched the whole thing. I've just been watching reactions and then some of these shorter clips. And it is clear to me. I don't know if I can say for sure that Peterson's lost a step, but he didn't come off great. Like, multiple things can be true. The kids, I say kid, I mean, he's a grown man, but
Yeah.
He's a kid.
Kid to me.
He's got a lot of energy.
He's probably 22 or something, but it's almost like it creates the environment to lay traps because you have a certain amount of time. And he asks questions. You see, Peterson's got that piercing gaze at the kid, almost like, Andy, that's good. That's like smolder.
Do me, and he leans in. He's
Dude, yeah, he was using power body language to like try to control the situation.
I'm going to get up in your grill.
So
Well, he's a psychologist,
yes.
so
But I did find
messing with the mind.
It did seem like maybe this clip isn't the greatest example of this, except that Peterson was quick to pull the trigger.
I wish we had a clip from 5 years ago of him kind of debating with people like out in public where he's like, why are you out here?
Well, that's kind of why people are a little surprised by this. I think this is why this clip has gotten so much attention, is because it seems like Jordan's off his game effectively, because that question's not a hard question that he's asking him. Aren't you a Christian?
It's an obvious question. True.
Aren't you a Christian? And why not? He doesn't say yes or no. Well, you suppose that. Like, dude, now you're playing games. Now you're dancing around.
Yeah, but that's the same thing that's what I was pointing out. He doesn't want assumptions made.
He's not, but it's not assumptions. He's just like saying, aren't you a Christian? And at that point, Jordan, like, okay, say yes, I am, or no, I'm not. And that's why the kid's like, wait, what are you doing?
I'm curious as to why he does that.
Why do you think? Let's speculate.
I truly think he wants to have a fresh conversation with people and get to know people, and you get to know me, I get to know you. Ultimately, you're in Jubilee, so there are some assumptions that we made, and he's like,
but he
doesn't go there.
But the goal of that debate or that conversation is not just to get to know each other. He's making suppositions. He starts with these prompts. Hey, I think atheists don't know what they don't believe, and and then they get to react to that statement.
True, but all the kid had to do was say, "Are you a Christian?"
He was snotty. I think he lost that one because he got kicked out because he had a snotty attitude.
If he had just asked, "Are you?" They get over.
He did ask, "Are you a Christian?" But he did it like all snotty.
Yes, yeah. Leading up to that, it was
because he said,
and then he did a
he
zinger.
Gets kicked out when he goes, "Well, I guess you're really nothing." That's that Jordan goes, "Boy, you're really something." As he's starting to corner him, the kid goes, "Well, I guess you're nothing,
right?
Because you're not a Christian. You're not a Christian." And that's when he's like, "I'm done with him."
If he only would have phrased it a little bit differently, because that is an interesting own of Peterson there. Because like none of us know what you are. A good question to follow up would be like, okay, you don't have to tell us if you're a Christian or not, but why don't you tell us?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Don't tell us, but what are the reasons for you withholding this information?
The kid missed the opportunity to follow up. If he could have pressed in and probably got more time, a lot more time, because he had something going, but he
was in there to win.
He started to make it.
What are his definitions of worship? Is like hold in high regard,
attend
to. It is a shame. They talk about worship
and sacrifice,
because it would be great for the kid or somebody to be like, so what do you attend to, Jordan? What do you worship by your own definition, not like as an idol or holding up above everything else?
Well, that's the challenge of these type of conversations is they're not listening as whoever is across them.
No, they come in preloaded.
Yeah, whoever's coming across answering, they're already thinking about what they want to say, not taking in. They don't have the actual intellect to take in, and as a very good lawyer would do in like cross-examination with a witness that is trying to be squirrely like that. If you have that ability, you can have a conversation with Jordan. But if you cannot do that, then you're just preloading stuff that it's like, okay,
maybe
are you going to be on the up and up with me or not?
No, I saw it a little bit differently. I think his points were right. Like if you just
the kid,
yes. I think if you remove his attitude, he's that's the right question to ask. And then to your point, like, why not the follow-up? Hey, that seems strange that you won't answer that. Why don't you feel comfortable answering whether or not you're a Christian? Because people who are Christians don't usually have a problem saying that.
Right. Hey, Andy,
saying yes.
Andy, are you a Christian?
Yes, I mean, it is as you say.
Zach, are you a Christian?
What do you mean by Christian?
Okay.
Are you a little Christ follower?
Seriously, if someone came up to you, a total random stranger, like, dude, you're different. Like, are you a Christian?
I would.
Shut up. God, why don't you answer the question? Zach, I'll give you a second chance.
Are you done with him? you gonna kick?
Can I use
kick
this?
Jeff
Can
off
I
our
use?
podcast?
Can I use the witness as a can I use this as a hostile witness?
I think you are the hostile witness.
Okay.
Maybe I'm nothing. Maybe I'm nothing. No, I mean,
Zach, are you a Christian?
I try to live like Christ, and I think by most definitions,
Andy,
that would be a Christ follower. Is that a Christian?
He's not answering the question. Andy, he's not answering the
I
question.
think you didn't listen to his answer, though.
Well, I'm preloaded.
Loaded is the operative
You are
word.
definitely loaded.
Fist me.
Oh man.
I mean, yes.
Oh, after you do all the sing and dance, then or song and dance,
it's
then you.
important. There's a lot of Christians that are acting like assholes right now, and I'm not that.
Well, you kind of were about 30 seconds ago.
Yeah, but so hold on, just
being coy.
That's not a. I don't like that comparison because there are plenty of Dodgers fans out there who act like assholes. But just because I'm a Dodgers fan doesn't mean I'm automatically an asshole.
I'm a fan of the life and teachings of Jesus Christ, and I follow Jesus Christ like a fan.
Andy, do you have a throw up cup? I need a throw up.
Because of all the beer you've had?
No.
I like the worship conversation is fascinating because I avoided interesting there, Jeff. You're welcome.
Not even paying attention.
You're already loaded up. You're chewing your teeth off right now.
Okay, let's go.
There's like the white powder under your nose or something?
Easy, buddy.
Coke nose?
I was baking earlier
Okay.
with flour.
You're baked, all right.
Jesus, this is terrible.
Is this all they do? That was the only section devoted to worship?
No. I mean, he has. So the way it goes is there's roughly 15 minutes given to a segment, and the segment is a prompt that Jordan Peterson will bring,
which had to do with worship in this case.
Yeah, and so I think the prompt in this one, if I remember correctly, was something along the
says
lines
it there.
of like
everybody worships something, including atheists.
Is there more to this video?
Even though they might not know it.
That we want to.
I mean, we could keep playing it for a minute, but real quick on worship. Growing up, the Christian apologists as sort of a way to own non-believers or to convince non-believers or to more often to convince believers that they are correct and they have the truth behind them. This is not a dig, even though it sounds like it. They would say, everyone's born with a God-shaped hole in your heart. Have you heard that?
I've heard that
something
phrase,
to that effect,
yes.
like people were made to worship. And what's been interesting about a lot of recent works by Jonathan Haidt and other non-believers but they're writing about human behavior and why people act the way they do. They're more and more saying that humans are designed to worship. Like literally every culture has some form of worship, whether it's like overt or covert.
Is that a revelation? No, that's not new information.
It feels relatively new for atheists to freely confess that, like humans were designed to worship.
Oh, but are atheists doing that?
I mean, Jonathan Haidt, he's not a believer.
Oh,
and he's not the only one. And Peterson, I don't think Peterson is a Christian in the way that most Christians would define it. I don't think he believes in a literal.
He might be like a deist.
Yeah, literal resurrection. He recognizes the importance of believing in something greater than yourself, and so he might say something like, whether there is a literal resurrection of Jesus is not the point. The point of living for the ultimate goal of self-sacrifice and giving everything up for what you believe in. And the more people do that, the world becomes better. And that's a great target to aim at.
Which is great, but that's not Christianity.
Right. Which is,
yeah.
I'm just trying to unpack what I'm sort of projecting onto him why he is not answering that stuff.
But then he does answer the question, what is worship? It's like, well, what is worship outside of worship in Jesus or God? Like it's understood that they're asking the question with the assumption that, what is worship? And, attend to whatever else it was in sacrifice. It's like you're sacrificing in worship. So there's obviously a belief there. So I'm
in your context, it's Christian. In
their context, it's Christian.
In the atheists, if Jordan would have turned it back on, what do you attend to?
Right.
He would have had some sort of answer. There's something in his life that he holds higher than other things. There's something that gives his life meaning. And maybe it's not the same. Maybe it doesn't answer some of life's questions in the way that the Christian worldview does, but it's something.
Well, and
that would have been interesting to hear.
Lots of people would, according to this definition, worship wealth. That would be the thing that they chase after, that they sacrifice for, that they attend to their lives towards, and is like the most important thing in their life is the pursuit of wealth. And that's probably an easy one for us to go after. And I think that's the point that Peterson is trying to make, is saying humans, whether you're Christian or atheist or any religion, religious or non-religious, you will have an object of worship,
and it can cover anything.
It doesn't have to.
Right.
It does not have to be spiritually based.
Correct.
It's just, where is your energy
Yes.
and your attention? What do you sacrifice for, and what are you driving
Right.
your life towards? What
Money,
gets all your attention?
family, work, Jesus, whatever it might be. It
Glad
could be
you
anything.
just told us your order, Jeff. That's cool. Thanks.
Money, family, work.
Money, family, work, then Jesus.
Then Gamecraft and Artifacts Brewery.
Oh my goodness. Okay, we got more of this.
Do you want to watch a little more?
I want to watch a little more
Okay.
Fun.
before I punch Zach.
All right. Look at that. Oh, that kid's like, oh, damn. Oh, no.
My God.
Damn it, YouTube.
Skip.
Sorry.
Skip. You're almost there.
Go to
Yes.
Okay.
Jeez. Good grief. Stop. Freeze it. Pause it. Has he had a brain? Is he just?
Doesn't ever come up. Don't distract. It's not important.
Well, I just want to point out that atheists have had
it.
part of their brain taken out. We'll continue.
Worship is when you prioritize and sacrifice for something, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But there's a hierarchy in there.
Sure. So I prioritize and sacrifice for my wife more than I would prioritize and sacrifice for a random person on the street, right?
Okay.
Probably. Yeah.
Presumably. Do I worship
I don't know.
my
I've
wife?
seen some pretty bad marriages.
Good
Assuming
point.
a good marriage, are you saying I worship my wife?
I'm trying to define worship.
Well, that's what I'm asking. So prioritize and sacrifice. I do
The
those
higher
things.
it is in the hierarchy, the more what you're doing is akin to worship. But even in your
Okay.
trivial acts of attention, you're prioritizing and partaking in worship, even if you don't know it.
So I am
And it's
prioritizing.
partly, well, with regard to your wife, say. So why do you value your wife? You do value your
Yes,
wife.
I love
okay.
her. So I
Right.
prioritize and I
Okay.
sacrifice for her.
Right. So that's within the confines of love, let's say. And
Sure.
what else does it serve?
What else does what serve?
Your love and your marriage?
I'm married to my wife because I love her. That's
Yeah.
also why I prioritize and sacrifice for her. I certainly wouldn't think I worship her, and I don't think anyone else would make that.
I'm
Are you
trying to
making
make
that
a
claim?
definition.
Okay.
Yeah, that there's a hierarchy of attentional priority, and as you move up it
Pause
or
it.
down it, depending on
Pause.
whether you think
I'm that guy. I kind of came to some realization that Jordan works backwards towards, like he said, I'm trying to create a definition, whereas most people will start with what defines something and then they will give examples. He starts from the back end and actually creates from there, which I find fascinating that he does that. But ultimately, people don't understand what he's doing. They think he's messing around with them, but really, he's like, I'm just trying to kind of get a very clear picture so we can define something. He doesn't start with a definition. He doesn't assume there's a definition. I think that's a really intellectual, as I said earlier, intellectual way to go about creating a conversation.
I think the problem with that, though, is this guy's trying to pressure test his definition here. And what kind of sucks is that Jordan is slippery. And so what he does is he gives a vague answer. Well, now it's as you progress up. So we'll see if he asks the question in here, but he should. The question I'm hoping that will come up is, at what point does it then officially become worship?
Right. And what everyone's holding in their mind, almost everyone watching this, and probably every one of the individuals there with Jordan, is the definition in the dictionary is to honor or show reverence for as a divine being or supernatural power. The second definition, to regard with great or extravagant respect, honor, and devotion, which is more where Jordan's going. So everyone's got deity in their mind, and Jordan is leaving deity out of his definition completely, which adds to the slipperiness of it, I believe.
Well, he's not even. Yes, I agree with that, but I would go back to he sets things in motion and then creates the definition. Oh, this is the definition that you are speaking of.
Okay, let's get back to it.
Definition of the God that you hypothetically disbelieve in.
It's irrelevant to the fault lines of this debate.
How is it irrelevant?
Because in common
skip
parlance,
forward?
when we're talking about atheists,
Wait,
God, belief,
who's that?
I don't know where that guy came
we
from.
accidentally jumped around. We're on claim 1.
Oh, hold on.
We were on claim 3
Oh,
before.
Oh, wow. That's fun. It just told us where it wanted to take us. Stand by.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
YouTube's like, you will worship claim 1.
Here's the kid with a shit-eating grin.
It's hard to know where to stop on the scrolling.
How many people actually came up and debated him in this?
20.
All 20 of them
Sure.
actually got
So
the opportunity?
I prioritize and sacrifice for my wife more than I would prioritize and sacrifice for a random person on the street, right?
Probably, yeah.
Presumably. Do I worship
I don't know.
my
I've
wife?
seen some pretty bad marriages.
Assuming a good marriage, are you saying I worship my wife?
I'm trying to define worship.
So that's where
That's
he
what I'm
should.
asking. So prioritize and sacrifice. I do
the
those
higher
things.
it is in the hierarchy, the more what you're doing is akin to worship. But even in your
Okay.
trivial acts of attention, you're prioritizing and partaking in worship, even if you don't know it.
So I am
And it's
prioritizing.
partly, well, with regard to your wife, say. So why do you value your wife? You do value your
Yes,
wife.
I love
okay.
her. So I
Right.
prioritize and I
Okay.
sacrifice for her.
Right. So that's within the confines of love, let's say.
Sure.
What else does it serve?
What else does what serve?
Your love in your marriage?
I'm married to my wife because I love her. That's
Yeah.
also why I prioritize and sacrifice for her. I certainly wouldn't think I worship her, and I don't think anyone else would make that.
I'm
Are you
trying to
making
make
that
a
claim?
definition.
Okay.
Yeah, that there's a hierarchy of attentional priority, and as you move up it or down it, depending on whether you think about it as a pinnacle or a foundation, you move more towards worship. Right,
Okay.
so even the small things, I'll give you an example. Imagine you go on a date. Well, imagine that your aim is a long-term relationship like a marriage. Okay, now imagine that your aim is short-term sexual gratification. Your pattern of attention is going to vary during the date, depend on your ultimate end.
Of
That's
course.
the hierarchy. The way that you attend to your wife is dependent on your ultimate aims, even if you don't know it.
So at what point is it worship? Because it sounds like you're
That's a
saying
good
worship
question.
is almost a spectrum, right? Or it's not a binary. It's not a.
It's kind of
quantum.
like that's a good
So
question.
when
It's
is
like
when is it worship as opposed to just I love my wife?
the closer you get to the top or the bottom, the more it's like
Pause
it's more
it.
like
How close
worship.
to the top? Because
So I can see the idea of how I attend to my wife, because I think that's where he's taking him and trying to get him to see whether I'm right or wrong, at least in my eyes. He's trying to get him to see that you love your wife. Okay, how do you love love your wife? And why do you love your wife? Like, why is there this attending to? Why is there? And he's like, well, are you saying that I worship? No, actually, if you move up, like the reason.
He's very close to giving the answer.
The reason.
Very close.
And I haven't seen this before. The reason that we would do this is because it's kind of like husbands, love your wife as Christ loved the church. And there in that is worship of our Lord and Savior as opposed to our wives. We're attending to our wives at such an extreme level because who we're following. And that either this person doesn't see that and understand that okay, they're an atheist, but so that's kind of
So do you worship Tanya?
no, absolutely not.
According to Jordan, you might.
Well,
It's a hierarchy,
dis-
and actually his wife came fifth when he mentioned the things.
I would disagree. I mean, if that was the case, I mean, and I'm not in a conversation, but let's hear this guy with the open mouth.
I just mean, according to what Jordan is describing right now and what you just said.
Up to this point, I don't think he's only asking.
All right, let's see what he says then.
I don't think I worship anything. And if you're saying I have to hit a certain threshold for it to be worship, it is possible I don't worship anything then, right?
It's not possible that you don't worship anything.
What do I worship?
Because you wouldn't attend. Well, love.
So you think I
apparently.
worship love?
Do you attend in consequence of love?
I
See,
do.
I'm trying to define something. What
Right.
do you mean worship?
Well,
I told you what I meant. What do you mean?
So I mean, something you worship is something that you have a reverential view for in a manner in which you believe it to be above and beyond normal things you like. Like you
So do you
presumably
have
worship
that
God.
attitude towards your wife?
I have that
Do you
attitude.
privilege her compared to other women?
Of course, I privilege her compared to
Okay.
other women, but I don't worship her. Nor does she worship me.
By the definition you just offered, yes, you do. Because you just offered a definition that involved prioritization and elevation.
Well, and thinking that she is divine above and beyond what a normal natural
women.
phenomenon can be. Not other women, no, beyond any human being could ever be. I will prioritize her over
See,
any
you're
other
making
human, but I
the
don't
assumption.
think that she is some
You're making
supernatural
the
being.
assumption that only the thing at the top.
What's wrong with these burger buns?
Oh, what is wrong with those burger buns?
They're not in my mouth.
That's a fake hamburger.
Those buns aren't in my mouth. That's the problem.
Or the bottom has anything to do with worship. And I'm saying that's not true.
Gosh
It's a
darn
hierarchy
sponsors.
of prioritization. And there's either something at the top or the bottom, depending on the metaphor, or you're fragmented and confused. Those are the only.
I'm the more this goes on, I am fragmented and confused.
I love this conversation.
This is how Jordan Peterson wins arguments these days. He just makes it so confusing so as to like people just give up, and like this guy is visibly
I do the weave.
I don't
becoming
think
more
it's confusing.
frustrated.
What is confusing about this?
It's almost not definable.
Yeah, so Jordan has said, he asked the question earlier, why? Why do you, and this has gone back to this guy going, well, no, I don't see my wife above everybody. Like he literally said that, like, no. And it's like, isn't your wife above? Like, why is that? He keeps coming back. He wants to keep asking, like, why? Why do you love her? Why is she above all else? And ultimately, this gentleman is he's not allowing Jordan to kind of go down that path because he kind of wants to keep creating stumbling blocks for Jordan to have to keep climbing over. And Jordan's like, I've already defined what that is. You're having a struggle in defining.
If we're having this conversation with Jordan, and by Jordan's definition, we all worship our wives. And I
disagree.
Like this, well, kind of like this guy, he disagrees with the word worship. But if I'm talking to Jordan, he's asking me, do you value her above, like my wife and my kids are pretty much at the top of everything.
You're going to sacrifice for your kids and your wife. That's
Yes.
a part of his definition of worship.
I wouldn't say I worship my wife or my kids. However, according to his definition, I do. And if he said, well, you worship your wife and your kids, and I'm like, okay, make sure you tell them that.
But Jordan never says you're actually worshiping. He says it's a part of worship.
No, that's not what he says.
Yes, he did.
No, he's giving the definition. What do you attend to? What do you sacrifice for? And the guy says, I love my wife. Do I worship her? And he's like, well, in the hierarchy, that's up there. If she's that important to you, then he's saying yes.
No, he did not say that. He said, and he kind of made almost a pyramid like,
right. That's in the confines of love.
But he's at the top of that is not a wife and children. At the top of that is worship for Jesus Christ.
No,
that's your definition.
That's yours.
That's where he will not define it until people actually define it. He works from back end.
He's not defining worship as just Jesus Christ at the top. That's not how he's defining it.
There's no mention of a deity.
He doesn't need to mention that.
He has people like you to add it.
No, he's moving
Or him.
or delete it. You're deleting that.
That's why his point is even atheists worship something. And he's trying to state it's not Jesus. He's not implying that atheists worship Jesus.
Yeah, but
that's what you just said.
No, but he's walking people to the point. It's like, why do you do that? And he's not getting these individuals to admit why. Why do you do that? Why do you put them above? Why do you attend? Why do you do this? What's the point of doing it?
So that guy responded and he said, I don't think she's a deity. I don't think she's better than all the humans on the earth. I love her and I sacrifice for and attend to her, but I don't think I worship her. And
but that wasn't the question he was.
It was
asking.
exactly.
They were jumping to that conclusion of going, I'm not worshiping her, and it's like, no, he was asking the specific question: do you attend to her?
Which is his definition of worship.
Do you sacrifice? But then he had the question of why, and it's gone off. It's gone sideways to where now he's trying to get people to like jump back to the path, but nobody ever so far. The two people have not jumped back to the path that he's trying to get them on.
The guy raises a great question. I think he's pressure testing Jordan Peterson's definition of worship. And so he's bringing something that says, okay, according to what you say, I attend to it, I sacrifice for it, I prioritize it. My wife fits all of those definitions. Are you saying I am a worshiper of my wife?
You never get the answer from Jordan. He goes, okay, so you're in this like confines or construct of what I've brought up.
Maybe because the guy caught him.
They jump to this point. He's trying to move them in that direction. He's never defined it. And if you've watched this whole thing, then maybe you know that he never even
That's the problem.
goes there.
The definition is too slippery. Andy, you mentioned pressure testing real quick, just based on how you guys feel so far. Pressure testing his definition, does it hold up to the pressure, or are there leaks in Jordan's definition? We don't have to like go into this, just generally yes or no.
Just
is Jordan's definition, if he's pressure testing Jordan's definition of worship, are there leaks in this pressure test? Is it failing the pressure test?
No.
Or is it airtight?
So Jeff,
it's airtight, and it hasn't even gone to the point where it would actually be tested.
So what do you worship, Jeff? According to this definition, what do you worship?
Jesus.
What else?
That's it.
Do you spend money on and attend to and watch and prioritize San Diego Padres games?
It's a hierarchy.
Do you?
No.
You don't spend money and you don't spend time and attend to.
Literally attend games.
You literally attend the games.
One of the things
you actually are
one
there.
of the things that Jordan he said there are.
But what do you say?
Levels? No, like it's a trivial attending to. Do I attend to my wife's feelings compared to the Padres? Like a million times more than that.
Right.
So there's a difference in that. And why do I do that? Because there's a hierarchy of why I attend to my wife, my children, because like there's someone who I'm following that would put me on that path.
Okay.
There's no reason to be on that path if it doesn't mean anything. And it's like, yeah, okay, hey, San Diego Padres, great, or my work or whatever, but I don't worship any of that.
Okay, so then it's a shitty definition. It's too loose and it's too vague.
You're saying that. I'm not saying that. There's so much more nuance to what he's saying.
Your answer is demonstrating the vagueness of it because you're creating your own definition that Jordan hasn't stated.
But he hasn't created an actual defined. He said
there you go.
He said there's these three things.
I know it's not defined. That's the problem.
But he defined these three things that have to do with what worship is. And then from there, it's like, that was the question that
Jeff,
he was asked.
I'll repeat it. Here's what his definition is. Do you attend to, do you prioritize, and do you sacrifice for? You physically attend San Diego Padres games. It is a sacrifice of your money and your time to go to those games, and you prioritize it. You choose to do that over other things. By his definition, you are a worshiper of the San Diego Padres, and you should repent.
Nice. Now you're adding to what he said.
That's his definition.
For humor's sake, that's great, Andy.
No, but there is a hierarchy.
But that's tomfoolery.
It's not tomfoolery.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's.
Don't be embarrassed about your worship of the Padres.
I mean,
you should be
I love
embarrassed a little
following
bit.
the Padres, but ultimately, I love going to the games with my wife. And we spend money going there, but it's not the money. It's an investment in my marriage. We have a great time. And ultimately, I love spending that time with my wife.
So you worship your wife.
And ultimately, I'm doing it for a purpose. Like, I want to serve the purpose that I was put here, which is to be a fantastic husband to my wife, go to Padre games where we socialize and have a great time.
Okay, all right. I
and
get the
honor
monologue.
Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. I know.
Two sentences, not 12. I get it. But that's the problem with Jordan's definition, is that he gives this long range of this being a spectrum. He's like, it's a hierarchy. But then he doesn't state, is everything in the hierarchy worship, or is there a point? And that's what that guy was trying to do. He's like, okay, well, is everything technically within the hierarchy considered worship, or is there a point where it like crosses the line and now this is worship?
Well, I think this guy, first of all, most of these atheists are on the spectrum, and
they don't understand. They don't even know who God is.
But it's none of us. I mean, we all have an idea.
They don't know who
God
Jesus is. Something that doesn't exist. He can't even talk to them. That's why he never brings up Jesus.
That's one of his other ones too, is that they don't know what they don't believe.
But the hierarchy part that Jordan keeps mentioning, and it hasn't gotten fleshed out very much, is this guy worships any number of things, and sometimes the hierarchy is going to shift. And according to Jordan's definition, if that is what worship is, yes, I worship my wife, I worship my kids. Maybe sometimes they are subservient to other things in my life, and that's not ideal, but it's not static. It's not like, okay, I'm going to put my wife at the top, and then it's never going to move. Even though that's the target is my wife and kids. And so if he says, therefore you worship your wife and kids, I'm like, okay, according to your definition, fine. I'm not offended. I wouldn't personally use that language of worship, but if this is the game we're playing, sure.
According
to his game.
Yeah.
I worship my wife and kids, and make sure you guys tell them that. Because if I do, they're just going to be like, oh, Dad, you're just, I don't know. Rabbit. I didn't get a harumph out of that guy. Give me a harumph.
Harumph! The fact that we're sitting here right now and can't agree on it is why his definition is frustratingly vague. And that was the original point, was because he's leaving it open-ended here, it allows people to go like, I don't exactly know what you mean. It leaves it open to being anything. Worship could be anything.
Andy, you're not right. Keep it going.
That proves it.
Yep. I guess Jeff said it, so.
Jeff said it. I believe it. That settles it.
No, then you'd worship multiple things.
So what's the threshold when it's worship, right? I prioritize a lot of stuff.
I said that the closer you get to the pinnacle, or the closer
How close?
you get...
Can you give me some sort of metric? How close do I got to get to this pinnacle?
Do you know the difference between cheap literature and deep literature?
Yes.
Okay, that's the same issue. And how do you distinguish between them? What's the difference between cheap and deep?
I mean, it's really an opinion-based thing, right?
Is it? So it's just an opinion that Dostoevsky is better than a porno magazine.
Well, I've spoken to people who think To Kill a Mockingbird is cheap. It's one of my favorite books. So, I mean,
Jordan does something really fucking dumb right there. I mean, I don't disagree. Like, yes, there's a difference in one thing is worth more than the other.
Yeah.
However, the guy is not wrong. This is subjective.
Yeah.
And so most of the way we're living our lives is going to be in that gray subjective area. It's not going to be this hypothetical that Jordan just set up, because Jordan wants to win the argument, and that's a tactic right there.
Yeah.
Anyways.
People will differ on opinions.
Just because people are stupid about things doesn't mean that their opinion is valid.
That's certainly true. I agree with that.
Moving the goalpost.
Hierarchy and literary quality.
I think that there is a hierarchy to an extent in literary quality, but I think once you get to a certain threshold, it is just opinion. Like, I agree. Dostoevsky is better than a porno mag, but is F. Scott Fitzgerald better than Ernest Hemingway? I don't know.
Yeah, fair enough. Why do you think that?
Because
that's a good one. That's what he said. Like, F. Scott is better than James Sarah.
Of what a book is, what literature is, Dostoevsky, he follows what literature is the purpose of more than the porno magazine does.
Good. Well,
so it's about purpose and definitions.
Sure. Let me give you an analog then.
Okay.
The depth of worship.
Jordan is enjoying this guy.
Literary significance. And the closer you get to what's deep, the more religious and worshipful your practice.
So
and maybe you don't know what's at the bottom, but something needs to be, or you're confused.
Well, so to use your analogy then, how deep do I have to go for it to be worship? Do I have to be Catcher in the Rye? Do I have to be War and Peace? Or
it depends on what you're seeking for.
I'm seeking to know whether I worship.
Okay, pause
you
it.
claimed I worship something.
Hang on,
If you want to have a deep and meaningful life, then you have to go all the way to the bottom or the top.
He's defined it right there.
You're capable of doing that, because otherwise you'll be fragile.
Okay, so what is that?
So he took it right there. He defined depth. Like, if it depends how deep you want to take it, and
what does that mean?
And
how do you know you're at the bottom?
Like,
what's the depth? Define it.
Do you know when you're talking with God? Do you know when you are touched by the Holy Spirit? Do you know when you're walking down the path that God has put forth? That is what he's speaking of.
I think you're projecting on him, and that is meaningful to you.
Dude, I want to throw up on you.
No. Okay.
Too many beers.
That'd be good pod.
No, I'm like, you constantly are telling, like, I think you're projecting, or you're putting words in his mouth. He literally just said, it depends on the depth you want to take it, and it gets spiritual.
And that means something to you. That is defined.
Does is that spiritual not a religious thing? Is it not a Jesus thing? Is it not a Holy Spirit thing?
I don't think he said spiritual.
I don't know what the top or the bottom means.
Rewind it a little bit.
This is hard to do.
It's about 30 seconds. A minute. Somewhere.
At the bottom, but something needs to be.
Go back a little.
Then how deep do I have to go for it to be worship? Do I have to be Catcher in the Rye? Do I have to be War and Peace? Or
it depends on what you're seeking for.
I'm seeking to know whether I worship something. You've claimed I worship something, and I want to know. If you want to
have a deep and meaningful life, then you have to go all the way to the bottom
or
the top. And insofar as you're capable of doing.
So he didn't say anything about being spiritual. You said that, not him.
It depends on
how you personally apply it.
No, if you go back, he actually does. He does talk of it.
I'm not throwing shade at you. I'm just saying what he said there resonates with you in a way that means something to you.
Yeah, but he knows he's talking about.
That hasn't been defined for us.
He knows he's talking about. He's talking to atheists, and ultimately, it's like, how deep do you want to go? Because ultimately, atheists do not have the capacity, and he's saying it depends on how deep you want to go.
Don't have the capacity
for what?
Don't have the capacity to actually worship.
No, he is saying that they are worshiping. That's the premise.
The entire
premise that he presents.
But there's like, you like as you said, Andy, you're worshiping money. Like you got off on this exit.
That's his
worship.
whole point. That's Jordan's whole point.
Yeah,
is he's saying you are worshiping it. That is worship.
Are you not listening to me?
Well, the idea of
getting bad.
Yeah, but the idea of Christianity, which is this ultimately started off as Christianity versus atheist.
Yeah.
Like that was the premise of this conversation. Even the first person we watched, that was the premise of the conversation.
Not to Jordan, apparently.
The topic that he gave was even atheists worship something.
Right, but the idea of worship, I mean, through his...
What is the idea?
But it's almost like you can take this off-ramp to something that's not meaningful. You can take that off-ramp to something that's not meaningful, or you can go to the depths of it or the top of it. And that's where he's
I'm with you there.
Go to the top or the depths of it, and now you're in a totally different place.
He is not.
Worship.
He's not stated or even implied that the atheists don't have depth yet. That's not been stated or implied. He's asking him right now, how deep do you want to go?
Yeah, but an atheist, if they're being honest, they're trying to push out God, which is actually humorous that they're like, I'm defining this and I'm getting rid of it. Well, you can't define something and get rid of it if it never existed in the first place. But he's trying to walk people through that, and maybe in his own spiritual life, he's trying to like walk through it
Maybe.
as he has these conversations with people. He's like,
Probably.
Are you, how deep do you want to go, or how high do you want to go with this? If you're falling in between, you're just getting at off ramps that don't really have meaning.
Can we let him finish this guy's little section, and let's see if this wraps it up?
Not because otherwise you'll be fragmented and miserable and anxiety ridden and hopeless.
So I have to worship something to have a meaningful life. And if I
There's
worship
no difference between those two things.
Okay.
They're the same thing.
So if I don't worship anything, my life will not be meaningful, correct?
Well, that's the definition of nihilism.
Okay. So if I'm a nihilist, I don't worship anything.
That's true. And then you...
Okay. Mm-hmm. You just said everybody worships something. I think you just agreed there is a class of people that doesn't.
Well, they're incoherent in their worship. And hand gestures like that aren't going to help.
All right.
Oh, good. We can talk about websites by Wix.
Oh my gosh.
Use promo code BROS.
Okay.
Look, if you're incoherent and fragmented and aimless, which is what happens if your objects of worship are unstructured and chaotic, then you're going to be anxiety-ridden and without hope. That happens. That's a technical argument.
But there's happy nihilists.
Oh,
How do you explain that there are happy nihilists then? Because you just said they
the
can't
mere
be.
fact that you state that there are happy nihilists doesn't make it true. Like, what's your evidence? How do you measure nihilism, and how have you associated it with happiness? And what's your definition of happiness? And have you compared them to religious people? Because if you do, by the way, it's clearly the case that religious people over the long run have better mental health. It's a well-documented fact in psychological literature.
Sure.
So your claim is just a claim. It doesn't stand on anything.
So you disagree with the claim that there exists even one happy nihilist?
I didn't say that.
Okay, would you agree there exists at least one happy nihilist in the universe?
It's not a question that has any meaning as far as I'm concerned, because it depends on what you mean by happy, and it depends on the duration that you're trying to calculate over. Now and then there's probably some deluded soul who thinks he's a nihilist who's momentarily pleased with himself. But as a long-term strategy to deal with the future, to get along with yourself and with others, it's sadly lacking. That's why Nietzsche warned that when God died, as he announced in 1850, that people would be flooded with pointless, anxiety-ridden, hopeless nihilism. And that was what would attract them for example, to the false gods of totalitarianism, which is exactly what happened, because everybody worships something, even atheists who think they don't.
Aren't there unhappy Christians or devoted believers? So worshiping something is neither sufficient nor necessary for happiness then?
Well, terrible things can come your way regardless, and that does happen. But it's the case that even when circumstances become deeply troublesome, that how you're oriented makes a big difference. So I'll give you an example. So the book of Job.
Maybe his best point so far.
Fair suffering. So Job is a good man who has everything taken away from him in the most painful possible way.
To settle a bet, right?
With Satan, yes. And so he makes
with the Satan.
Won't lose faith in himself or in the spirit of being itself. And that helps him remain calm and forward-looking through his time of trial.
Doesn't he absolutely curse God?
No. His wife tells him to do that.
All right, thank you.
All right, pause it. Okay. Actually, I hate to be actually Bible guy, but technically it's a title in Job. It's not Satan as we've come to know and love him, some of us more than others. It's a title, the accuser. It's not the actual devil. That's what I'm saying. Just to be accurate. That's all I'm saying.
I don't know what you're saying.
In the book of Job, God gambles with the Satan, the Satan, the accuser.
Mm-hmm.
He referred to him as the devil, or as Satan. Like Satan as the name, like
devil, Satan, accuser, like not synonymous?
No. The idea of like a singular devil that's opposite God developed. And in Job, it was a title for an individual in the heavenly court that was accusing Job and like, hey, let's figure this guy out, God. So
Parable?
It's a minor, yeah. Parable, wisdom literature.
So that can't be just, that can't go over and transcend what devil accuser is?
I don't
This
think it's
is
worth
the tangent of
quibbling.
tangents.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was just being technically accurate, Jordan.
Yeah, well, that's
I'm a little
gay.
bummed that that never resolved. They never got into it, and they themselves got off on a tangent and lost the thread. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
Once again,
Both of
I
them
think if given a half an hour, another half an hour with him, ultimately, I think Jordan walks him into a corner, and then defines, like, why do you do X, Y, and Z? Is it like with your wife, with your children? Why X, Y, and Z?
because I love her above all other things.
Why?
Does it matter?
I mean, how did they would come back to creation? Like, why would someone create you? Like, why would you have a wife? Why would someone create you? Well, they thought
why
amazing.
does that matter?
Well, it matters in when you then make like, I have a relationship with you. I've created you. And then why do you have a wife? Why do you put her above all else? Because there's this worship of the creator. Like, there's no reason to love somebody more if there's no purpose to loving that person. It's like, why would I do that if, I was just a dirt? Like, I love other dirt. Why? Well, I don't know why. Well, now we know why, because we have a creator, and that creates a hierarchy, as Jordan said.
It's the human version is a more complicated version of what animals do, and that's to survive and to thrive.
Yeah,
and to
but we
grow
have a
the
biblical
population.
view. Those animals were created, and we named, and
I understand.
Adam
You're
named
asking
them.
a why question. I'm giving you an answer.
Yeah, but you're also
yeah, but you're not letting me finish the thought. So
yeah, but you're saying something that doesn't make any sense.
How would you know?
Animals were.
How would you know what I'm saying doesn't make sense?
Because
if you're cutting me off,
you were
serious
you
question.
were putting humans on the same path as animals.
No, you asked a why question, and from their perspective, or any number of humanists, like the reason, the drive to create life, the chemicals that get released, the love we feel, the attraction we feel, the testosterone that drops after you have a kid, so you're less likely to stray, and you're more likely to stay and protect your own. Like, all these are actual biological things that can be explained on a humanistic, atheistic level. I'm just saying that's an answer they might give. It's like, that's a why to why he might love his wife. Now, he might individually explain it differently, but on a meta, giant, system-wide level, that's why animals procreate. Humans, that's why we procreate. If you were going to explain it absent the purpose that you're talking about with God.
But I would say that you're sitting in a gray area of no definition of what is a hierarchy of, like, human beings and animals and husband and wife. Like, and those that bond to each other and create children, and God created them. Like, I could really care less. Those are lost people on the screen, 20 lost people that are trying to find purpose. And Jordan's ultimately trying to be like, hey, if you start defining this, you're going to walk yourself into a corner and realize there's no other place I could have come from than a God that created me. Or because you can't just come from nothing. I mean, you will come from nothing, but you'll have some supernatural, miraculous moment, and that's what God is, and you can't even define it. So the idea of, like, oh, these people believe in this, I don't really care what they believe in. It's ultimately like, I want to drive them to a creator and a belief in God, and that Jesus came here. And if you walk anybody through a path of, like, how did you become? How did your ancestors become. How did that happen? You didn't come from dirt or water or anything. Like, that's impossible. Why? Because we don't see that today. We don't have half monkeys and half humans. Like, ultimately, it's like there is a creator. It's God. There's no other answer. And so to have a conversation with an atheist, I'm like, it's a whole lot of gray for atheists. And it's like, you're lacking purpose. And my hope is, I haven't seen this, but my hope is that Jordan has pushed some, if not one person, to actually ask the question of like, maybe I'm wrong. Am I wrong?
There's a few in there that they have some good conversations, and it doesn't feel like they're trying to win the debate, that they are entering the conversation in good faith. And there's a few points that like they concede. They're like, okay, yeah, you've given me something to think about. And actually one of them is this African American girl who comes on, and she stays on for a long time, and then he gets at the end to pick one person to talk to for 10 minutes, and without them being able to get voted out. And they go back and forth. She's very respectful, and he's very respectful, and they're trying to, like, I think they're both going for clarity on where each other stand versus like, I'm trying to beat you and score points. And there's points in it where she's willing to say, yeah, that's a good point. I see where you're coming from there, and maybe I
agree, disagree. It's like,
well,
neutral.
No, not even that. Like conceding points, like
right. Oh, okay.
And I actually, with this guy, it was cool to see when he first sits down. Jordan is doing. It's like he's playing a part. He's doing the squint, like the hard, like, ooh.
I'm seeing into your soul.
What are we gonna do now? And that softens pretty quick as he's like, okay, this kid wants to talk and have a conversation, and that was a good faith dialogue. And Jordan softened up, and it went in and out of incoherence, and like the goalpost kept moving, but it was still engaging and fun. And I'm glad that happened. That was very different than the first kid.
When you say goalpost moving, Jordan's moving the goalpost?
Both of them. Like, they didn't stick to the question. When Jordan has an uncomfortable question he has to answer, he will come back at a question that moves it slightly so that he controls the narrative. It's a tactic. He does it without even thinking, I promise you. It's just like natural to him. Which is why it's not about like why debates are good and they suck sometimes, is because all it is like, let me reframe that. People like that have made a living off of debating people, like thinking Charlie Kirk, Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, like, if they stick to their starting point and get the person to buy into their presupposition from the beginning, they're very and if they stick to it, they're very logical, and that's why it seems like they can't be beat, is because they have the starting point. But as we see with some of these things, the starting point keeps changing, and that's all you need to do is poke a hole in the starting point, and then they'll move the goalpost to be like, no, here's your new target. Now we got to argue over that. And I can't remember a specific moment in that, but it definitely happened multiple times on both sides.
What strikes me about
very fine people.
What strikes me about Jordan Peterson is that he has all of his answers already set in his brain, because it's like, this is the truth. And then as people ask, he says, it's this, X, Y, and Z.
What do you mean by truth? I say in jest, but that's literally, that's what he does. And
I don't see a problem with that. And I don't see that as moving the goalpost.
What do you mean by problem? Like, this is what he would do. What do you mean you don't have a problem with that? What does that mean? What do you mean by problem with it?
In terms of...
Doesn't it feel frustrating?
No.
Okay.
It feels like an intellectual conversation. I'm like, oh, good. We're going to...
What do you mean by intellectual?
It's almost like an outline where you have like, it's like this outline that it goes in depth, because if we can just go through this entire idea of intellectual or worship or spiritual or truth and walk through it and learn from others what they define as intellectual or truth or what Jesus is.
I think so too, and that's why you
But
saw
I don't think-
frustration from those people because
That's
Jordan's
their
definition.
problem.
Well,
And-
that's anyone's problem who's
Yeah, but
trying
that-
to have a conversation.
and
And
it
ultimately, if you're Jordan Peterson, why are you giving a definition that's confusing? Like, why are you giving one that's so vague? That
What do you mean confusing?
Well, no one here in that
Have
one.
you listened to this entire conversation?
Yeah.
No. But I realize
Because he's trying to go like, okay, well, I don't understand by your definition. It sounds, are you saying that I worship my wife? And what would be great is Jordan to come back and go, hey, I've said these things. Do you do those things? And the guy said, yes, I do those things. I tend to, I prioritize, I sacrifice for my wife. Then instead of going like, well, hierarchy and blah, 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 just go, yeah, according to my definition, you do. You worship your wife. And then this is the perfect point for the guy to go, hey, you and I have different definitions of what worship means.
Yeah, and also it doesn't mean you think your wife is a deity, which is where most of their brains are at with worship, and that's the big wrench in this. Is like most people are thinking worship deity because that's what the definition has been until this conversation.
there was an assumption made, and Jordan Peterson does not stick to that assumption, and that frustrates people. And they're like, "Why are you not answering this question? Why are you beating around the bush?" And ultimately, he's like, could you define that for me?
Well,
could you tell me what X, Y, and Z is?
And that's why I think they have conflicting definitions. And so what I heard that last guy come in, he's like, "Oh, I don't agree with your definition because there isn't a spiritual aspect to it. I don't see her as a spiritual deity. I don't see her as above all other humans." And so for that guy, I would assume, based on him making those comments in there, that he believes that there has to be this spiritual deity aspect to worship, and he's holding that as like that's where my definition of worship begins. Otherwise, it's just things that I really care about deeply, love, and prioritize, but it's not worship. And that's why why we're all frustrated with Jordan, because Jordan's like, yeah, but maybe it's worship or maybe not. And that's why the guy's like, okay, so when is it worship?
Right. And he pointed out that there's depth to, there's on the surface. He didn't say on the surface, but I'm defining, like, there's this on the surface worship where, yes, you're meeting these three things, but then there's this almost like depth outline. He's like, if you want to take this all the way down,
so
like
you can achieve all of his definitions. You can do all the things that he says, but it not be worship. It's not worship, because that's what you said. The Padres, you don't worship them. So even though they met all of his criteria, you have a different criteria than he does for worship, which is okay.
It would take 2 hours probably for him to talk with the one individual to kind of like, okay, so now
don't worry about that.
You're defining this, and then we're done. This is your off ramp for that worship. But that's like, that's like whatever worship.
I think you also don't have the same definition that he does. I don't think any of us carry the same definition that Jordan does for worship.
I would agree that none of us carry the same for worship, or
I usually carry the one,
or our beliefs. I mean, it ultimately comes.
That's a different thing. I'm not.
Yeah, but my point is, I'm making a parallel of there are things that we worship, or we have beliefs. Like, how strongly do we believe in terms of our worship? Like, these are like worshiping God, worshiping money.
That's a circular argument. You're just like, you're saying the word worship to define worship.
Yeah, but that's what Jordan. There was an off ramp that if he had more time, he was.
Well, don't worry about like what could have stating. Don't worry about what could have happened. Like in here, I think
no. He kind of was stating like, well, if you want to go to the kind of the ends of the earth type thing, you want to have depth, then that's very different than what you're talking about.
Does your wife count as the depth?
The depth. If you're doing this to the extreme, then yes, am I moving towards God?
Do you attend to, prioritize, and sacrifice for your wife? Again, this is his definition. That's why we're struggling with this. It's his.
I'm not struggling with it because I know.
Then you worship Tanya.
I know what he's moving towards.
Accept it. You think you know, because you don't know him. You're
Do you
not
worship your wife?
I don't agree.
Do you worship your kids?
According
yes or no?
Can I answer? No, I don't.
But according to Jordan, according to Jordan's.
So what's worship to you?
I don't, because that's not my definition.
What is worship to you?
It has to involve spiritual and a deity. It is not worshiping. It's not just prioritizing the things of earth. So I worship God in the shape of Jesus and the Holy Spirit. That's who I choose to worship, right?
Yeah. So is loving your wife and your children and leading them to the Lord a part of worshiping God and Jesus?
That's a different question.
No, it's not.
It is totally. It is
you
a
just moved the goalpost.
You moved the goalpost.
If you want a definition of moving the goalpost, that was it.
You're a goalpost mover.
It's also a good
That
question.
was not moving the goalpost.
Yes, it was.
You changed
No, it wasn't. Both of you are wrong. No,
Go
that
back
is not. No,
119.
Jeff, it was a great question, but it was a different
different
goalpost.
question.
Don't. No, I don't. No, that's not.
Here's exactly how.
No.
Let me explain to
No.
you. Let me explain.
This is
The
where
question was,
this is where
do
I
we-
and you two differ
Let
completely.
Andy mansplain to you real quick.
I don't need him to mansplain. I asked him, "Do you? What is worship? This is worship. Is loving your family a part of worshiping God?"
That's a different question.
No, it's not.
The question was not, do I worship God? The question was, do I worship my wife? You changed the question, Jeff.
But I'll answer your question.
Okay, as you're traveling towards God, there is worship to God, and a part of that
What
is
do you
loving
mean
your
by
family
traveling?
and kids on the way to worshiping God. That's the question.
The object of my worship is not my family.
I didn't say that.
That's what you're saying right now. It's on your way.
Is worshiping God a part of loving your wife and family?
Okay, according to that question,
Yes.
Oh, Jesus.
But it was a different question.
Yeah.
Please help these young men.
Are you praying for us in real time right now?
I am.
Okay, continue. Go ahead. Finish your prayer.
Well, I was so excited for the comments. Please comment on this section because, Jeff, I want you to watch it back. You did ask different questions, but we do agree. We 100% agree that part of the way that we choose to worship God, not to worship our family, is by loving
Never
our
said
family.
worship your family.
God damn, you did though.
But you know what? I will say, and here I'm going to say it because I said I will. I don't know why.
Maybe you will
I can't
say it.
stop saying
Apparently
that.
you're not going to say it.
I'm not going to. I'm just going to.
Jeff, what would you like to say? Because
No,
Zach
hold on.
can't say things.
You guys sit in the gray and you will not convict yourselves to just be like, yes,
Yeah,
loving my family is worshiping God.
That's a different question, Jeff.
Jesus.
Listen,
No, we already agreed to your
dude.
that question. We already agreed
Yeah,
to your
we said
framing
yes.
of that. But I don't
Where
know what
was
it
I
means.
differing in asking the
so
question?
when you guys say, you know what sucks about tonight, and this has been great,
I'm going to start drinking
is
your beer.
the last episode that got trashed.
You said we were going to start drinking. I'm
gonna
like,
start drinking.
we should talk about the definition of start drinking.
I haven't drunk in 15 minutes. Last episode.
My starts happen every 30 minutes.
Last episode where we did this topic and we had to throw it in the garbage. We read a bunch of YouTube comments. Right now, none of the comments are pulling up on my iPad, so we're gonna have to put them off. They were good ones. Thank you, Dave Millsap, as usual. And then also, he engaged with somebody that I can't remember the name of, but it was a fun name.
Bruce Almighty.
No, it was a fun name.
But I don't know what it means to worship God. Like when people say, I worship God first, I think what that means, in my slightly cynical current state of that means you have an idea of what God is, and you have an idea of what it means to worship God, but it's almost not definable, and you almost can't tell somebody how to exactly do it because what you are picturing God is personal to you. So that being said, for me, I rely on how you love God is how you love other people.
That's why Jesus ties those two commandments together.
And I'm very identifiable with that because it's tangible. I know I can love my wife. I don't always do. Guys, I'm not a perfect husband. I don't always love my wife perfectly. I don't always love my kids perfectly. But I try to have.
It sounds like you're a pastor of a mega church.
They're definitely my
that is the go-to.
That's kind of what I was doing.
Are you guys like me? Maybe you don't love your wife exactly perfectly.
By the way, I've been watching Righteous Gemstone. My wife is now watching it too. Oh my gosh.
I love that show. Oh my gosh.
Praise him.
I'm sweating like a whore in church right now.
Sounds like you're worshiping.
It's warm. This conversation was robust. and fascinating and fantastic. Thank you, guys.
It was interesting.
Can we land this plane?
Yeah, let's land it. All right, everybody. Oh, gosh. Thanks for tuning in.
Conclusions?
Yes. Okay, so listen, first of all, if you enjoyed...
So what, now what?
God damn it.
So what, now what, Andy?
I wish our church would do that. Okay, so I'm going to leave with some questions. So what, now what?
Oh, man.
Dude.
This is the part where I apologize to our...
No, don't apologize.
All right, are we landing or not?
So what, now what?
Andy was just looking at me like Jordan Peterson. I am going to intellectually fuck you up.
I can't tell if I'm supposed to say something or not now.
Finish.
I don't know.
Finish finally. Come on.
I had a comment that was going to be inappropriate.
Are you done yet?
All right.
Finished?
Listen, listeners, thank you. You made it all the way to the end. If you are here at an hour and 24 into the podcast, that's great. Thank you. If you do nothing else, just share this podcast with one other person this week because it helps get the word out, it helps the podcast grow. The other things that are always super helpful because, again, it spreads the word is liking, subscribing on YouTube, giving us those thumbs ups, and 5-star ratings on anywhere you can rate your podcast. That's always super helpful as well. Any last?
I really enjoyed fighting with Jeff on this one. I don't know if you can even see this on the big camera, but Jeff.
Oh, it's on there.
I really enjoyed fighting with you, and I appreciate you fighting back.
For Jeff, Zach, I'm Andy. This is Bros, Bibles, and Beer. Grace?
Peace.
Cheers.
Cheers.
You don't have a good friend or you don't have a hemorrhoids? Or
yes.